Hi, Rob Fleming in the Philippines here, and don't you think I'm looking very handsome at the moment? I quite like this look. It's got that kind of, kind of sun-drenched, beachy look. It's nice, I like it. Anyway, Rob Fleming in the Philippines here. Today we're going to talk about tomboys and ladies. And so before we get there, please remember, we can't live on air, and we can't live on your pleasant thoughts either. So please go onto one of the sites and just drop us a little something. A little gift, a little present, a little saying, I appreciate what you're doing, Rod, you know, it's good and it's good advice. So, once you've done that, let's go back and we'll talk about tomboys and ladies. Now, in the Philippines, there's slightly different nomenclature in place, right? But the tomboy and lady dichotomy is replicated all across the whole region, they're everywhere. And that's the Thai one. That's specifically what they're known as in Thai culture. And a tomboy is a masculine female, right? He's basically an HSTS, female to masculine. Okay, that's what a tomboy is. Here they're lesbians. They call them lesbians here, but it's the same thing. And they all wear their hair very short, they adopt masculine clothing styles, they will try to be as masculine as they possibly can, they might go to the gym, they almost certainly won't be taking any kind of hormones or anything like that. That's just really not something that they do. I know sometimes they try to they try to source hormones, but they don't do it with any great enthusiasm, and I think that's probably a very good thing, to be honest with you. They don't make any secret of the fact that they are fascinated by women. You know, it's if you go to an afternoon, for example, you could be out. I have a very good friend called Ryan, and Ryan has been mentioned before. I think he's even appeared in some videos before. Ryan is a trans man, stroke, lesbian. Okay, so he's a pretty big guy. I guess Ryan would be about 5'8". When you consider that that's really above average height for a man in the Philippines, and the average for a female is like 5 feet, this is one big guy. He loves his beer, I tell you. He really gets into it, and you know, he's a typical guy. He's like, let's go and shoot some pool and drink some beer, and look at girls, and that's what they're like. I mean, they're not at all shy about this. I mean, you go drinking with people, with guys like this, with lesbians like this, and they are constantly ogling the girls. You know, they're checking them out. You know, she's pretty nice, eh? What do you think? You like that one? Just check the ass on that. Oh man. And this is despite the fact that Ryan is in a settled relationship. You know, they're all like that. They're very, very demonstrative of their sexuality. It's like, yeah, this is what we like. We are fascinated by women. We like femininity, and we are not ourselves feminine. We don't do that, right? They just do not do that. They are, well, they're tomboys. I mean, when they're kids, they are tomboys. And I hear a lot of people talking in the West about how, I was a tomboy, but now I'm a perfectly happy lesbian. Well, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the same as here, because here nobody has surgery. People don't go running around having their boobs cut off because they're lesbians. They don't go running around having their vaginas chopped up and Franken dicks put in place. They don't do that kind of thing. They just play the social role of men. They adopt and perform the social identity called man. Sorry, I had to move through here because it's just getting too fucking noisy next door. This is a hellish place. I have never hated living in a place as much as I hate living here. It's unbelievably noisy. It's constant, non-stop, 24 hours. Constant noise. You know, whether it's the shooting range or karaoke, or there must be 1,000 dogs just in the block. And they never fucking stop. And do their owners make any attempt whatsoever to stop them? Of course not, they're Filipinos. Oh, lovely people. Anyway, the tomboys. Tomboys adopt and perform the social role, the social persona, if you like, of man. Right? That's all they do. They wear men's clothes, they wear men's hairstyles, they kind of walk as masculine as they possibly can, but they don't have any of the silly stuff that happens in the West. I mean, they just don't. But at the same time, please note that they are all masculinized. Right? They are masculine. Now, what about the ladies, or the Ds? These are called Ds in Thailand, from lady. They don't have a specific name in other cultures like Filipino. They're just girls, or women. Who are they? What's going on here? They're not lesbians to start with. I mean, this was one of the big, one of those eureka moments that I had, which was actually, it came from not from observing, men with ladyboys, but it was with lesbians with women, and it was like, wait a minute, the lesbian, I can see that, she is a lesbian, and she will say, oh, I'm a lesbian. I like girls, that's just what I like. I love it. I just love it. And they're very open about it, very frank, and I don't have a problem with them. Like I say, it's very easy to be for a man to be friends with a lesbian like that, because there's no tension. It's just like, hey, let's go for a beer and shoot some pool, and we'll watch the girls. Perfectly normal and pleasant afternoon, just fine. They're just obvious, so they're kind of a case apart. Whereas the women they go with, women here, or girls and ladies in Thailand, there's nothing different about them. I mean, a lady might, at another time of her life, be dating men, might actually get married, might have been married in the past. It's not at all uncommon. These are not what a Westerner thinks of as a lesbian, because they're not lesbians. It's the masculine partner in those relationships who's a lesbian. And of course, that also, when you flip the mirror on that, then you suddenly realise that in relationships between men like me and girls like Sam, yes, she is a homosexual male. Yes, she's sexually inverted male. I'm not. It's completely, it's like that. It's the same, inverted, So ladies are usually indistinguishable from from women in the culture. You can't just tell them apart. It's like they wear their hair here, they wear their hair long, they wear feminine clothing, they wear dresses, they wear perhaps shorts. So a lot of girls here just wear shorts and t-shirts because, it's hot here. And if you're not actually going out on the town and dressing up, then the easy thing to do is just to slum it in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And a lot of girls here, that's women, females, that's what they do. And of course a lot of ladyboys do too, but they're not in this picture just now. So that's your classic tomboy and ladyboy. And the tomboys, they will have been spotted as tomboys when they were kids, like 4 or 5 years old, little girls, and they wanted to dress up as boys. They wanted boy toys. They wanted to play with the boys. Now, they weren't romantically attracted to the boys. They just liked being with the boys. They identified with boy society, and they felt good and safe within it. And as they got older, eventually they became eroticized, and they discovered that, well, actually, I like girls. Oh, yeah, I like that stuff, the curvy bottoms, and hey, all that's fun stuff. They like it. And they're lesbians, I mean, they're called trans men very often in the Philippines, but they're trans men who are completely, I mean, it's social only. In technical terms, it's social only. All they do is change their hairstyle and their clothes. They're not taking hormones. They're still menstruating. There's still all the other things that they do. They still have boobs. I mean, quite often they've got rather mannish bodies. Because they are sexually inverted, and there's usually a lot of physical parameters are affected by that too. So they can be quite mannish, like Ryan, I've talked about before. I mean, he's a big guy. It's very easy for him to pass as a guy. He's not petite at all. And so, it's easy because he's got that frame and shape already. The ladies are just girls like any other girl. Now, I remember, this was a few years ago, I had a conversation with a Thai woman, female, who was Thai, but she had lived in America from childhood, USica, right? And so she had adopted a whole range of ridiculous USican ideas. And she managed to get a posting in Thailand, because obviously she spoke fluent Thai, no problem, could read, write, the whole lot, because she was Thai. And she's a lesbian. And she thought, wow, that's great, because it's so open and free in Thailand, it's just going to be super. All these girls, and I had to chat to her, and she was really downcast. And I said, what? Why? What's wrong? And she said, well, they told me this place was absolutely fantastic for lesbians. And I said, well, it kind of is. I mean, they're all over the place. There's 3 of them sitting in the corner of the bar, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. And she said, oh, no, not like that. Not like that. No, I'm not like that. I mean, the trouble is and she looked just like any other woman. She just looked like a girl. She had long hair, wearing a dress, all that sort of stuff. She says, whenever I try to approach a woman here, they don't want to know. Just walk away. They won't believe that I'm a lesbian, and they have no attraction for me. And she actually said, Thailand is hell on earth for lesbians, which to me it was, how can you say that? What it is, it's hell on earth for your American version lesbians, for your standard version, which would have been standard in the West prior to about 1970. And you go back and you look at Magnus Hirschfeld's pictures, and you look at Gertrude Stein and all of these people, and yeah, you tell me that they're not masculinized. Yes, they are. It's the short hair, butch look. Lesbians are butch. Okay? And, all of this like with like thing, which is has become the absurdity of the West, it just doesn't happen here. I mean, so 4% of the world's population think that like goes with like. Nobody else does. There's 96% of the population of the world say, bullshit. Opposites attract. And so, if you're a girl, if you're a female who wants to attract women, other girls, you make yourself masculine. Just as if you are a boy who wants men, you make yourself feminine. As feminine as you possibly can. And oh boy, are they good at it. Seriously. That is what happens. That's the Toms are essentially the inverse, the opposite of HSTS ladyboys. Now, I have never been aware of any kind of non-homosexual. I mean, they're not even lesbian. Non-homosexual trans men as exist in the West. In these cultures, I don't think they exist here. I really don't. And I'm always very cheery about saying, never say never again. Be careful with that one. But I honestly could put my hand on my heart and say I have, in 10 years, I have never seen or met anyone that would qualify as being a non-homosexual trans man. It's like, here they go, what? What? All trans men are lesbians. It's the same thing. That's what is the culture here. It's the same thing. So this was what had really screwed up this young woman that I was in correspondence with, because she wasn't going to cut all her hair off and dress like a guy. That she had got totally confused by the usual US-ican absurdity of like goes with like, which it just doesn't. Like does not go with like. That's just a 1970s fiction. And we would all actually do it better if it was just got rid of. Now, there's another type of lesbianism that you will see in Southeast Asia. And that takes a little bit more explaining. I mean, the butch lesbian stroke tomboy with Susie Cream Cheese stroke lady is really easy to understand. It's completely gender normative. It's completely heterogender. It's a boy and a girl. It's just so easy to understand. But there is another type where you will see two women having relationships with each other, and that neither of them are butch lesbians. So what's happening there? And in my experience anyway, and of course I'm limited to what I've actually seen, but I've seen quite a lot. I've seen things that most Westerners will never see. I've lived in traditional Filipino villages, where they take the water from a well, that sort of thing. I have lived in places like that. I've seen life in the Philippines that almost no Westerners have seen. Trust me. And it's been an incredible journey, an absolutely incredible, fascinating journey into the culture of this wonderful, Wonderful place. And I mean, I know they're noisy bastards and they drive me nuts, but this is a wonderful country. A seriously wonderful country. Anyway, there is this other type. And in this, they're both like feminine women. And you kind of go, well, Rod, you know what, that kind of torpedoes you think, well, no, it doesn't really. Usually what you find is that these girls either are or have been, these women, either are or have been married. And quite often they're related, you know. And it took me a little bit of finding out. I had to ask around and ask a few people and talk to some people. You know, I always do that. I'm constantly blathering. And it turns out that what happens is that it's basically a form of, excuse the kids next door, it's basically a form of situational lesbianism. You know, many people don't understand this, but 9% of the entire Philippines' GDP comes from what's called overseas and foreign workers. So that's workers, Filipino workers, who are working abroad, right? And their money gets sent back into the Philippines economy. 9% of the GDP comes from that. So there are a hell of a lot of Filipinos who are away for long contracts, I mean 10 months, a year. It's really not uncommon. It could be men, it could be women. An awful lot of the Filipinos are still the case, are in the merchant marine, so they're sailors. I mean, obviously that's an industry that's contracted considerably in some ways in recent years, but you know, there's still loads and loads of container ships going around the world. You know, I've put up a little map of my, a screenshot of my ship AIS ship tracker and show you just how many ships are actually going through the South China Sea at the moment, or the Philippine Sea if you prefer. It's absolutely incredible, and they've all full of guys. I mean, full of guys and women. There's loads of workers out there, and they're all on, you know, they're offshore for a long time. So what are their wives going to do? You know, there they are in their homes, rattling about with their kids. And Filipinos, you know, there's one thing about Filipinos is they don't like sleeping alone. Which to a Westerner is a bit like, what? I mean, they're not, you know, when they're kids, they're not looking for their own bedroom. They're used to sleeping with two other people in the same bed. And they love it. It's like, great, you know, hey, it's all cuddly and friendly. Oh, it's fine. It's not a sexual thing. It's just that they're like puppies. It's like, that feels really nice, you know. It's okay, it's good. It's reassuring to be in that kind of a group. So, what's going to happen here is that you've got two women in the same village, or same barangay, whatever, and they are, you know, their husbands are away, or maybe one of them's their husband, or maybe one or both of the husbands are dead, you know, which does happen. I mean, you know, illness, early death, industrial accidents, that sort of thing. But anyway, for either all the time or for long periods of time, they're alone. So they just move in together. It's like, oh, you know, I'm fed up sleeping on my own. You come and we'll just shack up together. And when, you know, Jonathan and Frederick come back on shore, well, we'll just go back into their houses and they're never going to know any better, you know. I mean, why would they worry anyway? You're my cousin, and you're a woman, you know. And that's actually what happens. And it's like they just form a relationship of convenience, which, particularly if they both have kids, is really helpful for them, because it's like, you know, we double the resources that we have to look after the children. And so if they're working, or maybe got part-time jobs, because they'll be working, living on the husband's income, or, you know, there's just all these things you have to do, doing the laundry and all that kind of stuff that feminists hate doing. I really think feminism is really, all it's about is that some women don't like doing the dishes. I think this is probably true, you know. Anyway, these will form relationships. Now, to a Westerner, they look like lesbian relationships, but they're not really lesbian relationships. As soon as the men come back, they go back there. And I think calling them bisexual is really, it's stretching the point a bit. I mean, they're only having sex with other females because they're being loyal to their men. You know, I mean, you know, the young woman, if she's in her 20s, early 30s, I mean, what's she supposed to do? Use a carrot every night? And I mean, well, I'll get my cousin to do it for me. If she's nice, I like her anyway, we get fun. You know, we've got a bottle of wine, have fun doing it. That's what you're seeing. It's not lesbianism as it's understood in the West. It's really not. I mean, lesbian in the West and gay in the West, it's all part of this really horrible political thing, where it's all about let's destroy society. These people are not trying to destroy society. They're trying to preserve it. They love it the way it is. And so they know perfectly well that, you've got two women living in a barangay, which is like a barrio, or in a village, and supposing, one of them, a woman whose husband is dead, well, what's she going to do? If she starts looking for another husband, then the chances are that she's going to start encroaching on some other female's territory. And that sort of thing causes wars. When you scale it up, it causes wars. And on the domestic scale, it causes serious disruption and potentially violence between men who are like interested in this girl. I'll tell you a wee story. I remember my mother, because I lost my father when I was 15, so my mother was still very young. She was 42 and still very, very good looking, very stylish. I mean, she was always a real stylish woman, my mum. And later she said, it's really terrible. I mean, it's awful. Why? Because, before my father died, she was like the centre of society. She was involved in all sorts of clubs and associations, all of which are full of women. And I'm like, well, what happened to all those friends? Oh, they don't want to know me anymore. The reason being that a single woman was viewed as a threat, because the women that she was formerly friends with are all like, wait a minute, she's going to try and get my husband. She's single now, and she's really beautiful. She's going to try and get my husband. And yeah, I remember getting in some serious rows because, my mother wasn't actually there, but people saying really things I wouldn't accept about my mother. And that was why. She never did anything to justify that. It's just that actually being single constitutes a threat to women in established marriages. So yeah, the idea like, okay, I'm single, you're single, let's just not annoy anybody and we'll set up together. Sorry, I had to go and deal with the dog. Anyway, what happens there is it's situational lesbianism. It's not their preference. I mean, I'm sure they're quite comfortable with it. I'm sure they're very capable of giving each other sexual pleasure. I mean, women have bits of their own, they know what makes them work. So I'm pretty sure they can figure out how to make another woman's bits work. But these are not masculine. They're not masculine females, so they're not lesbians. Tomboys are masculine females. They are the same as lesbians. That's what a lesbian is. It's a masculine female who is attracted to feminine women. Just as a ladyboy, an HSTS trans woman if you like, is a feminine male who is attracted to masculine men. So, one thing I would add is that quite often you'll see a tomboy forming and establishing a relationship with a ladyboy. And quite often these will get themselves in the paper because the tomboy will actually have kids, right? Because most ladyboys are still sexually potent. Don't let anybody kid you about that. They are. And so that might well get into the local media because sometimes it's picked up by the international media because here you have, oh yeah, trans man gets pregnant. Well, I gotta tell you people, they've been doing that in Southeast Asia for a very long time and nobody really notices anymore. It's like, so what? I mean, they can even get married if they wanted to. One is female and one is male. It's just that the female one looks like a guy and the male one looks like a woman. But the law doesn't give a damn about that. They're okay, female, male, female, so fine, get married. And they often do because it confers fiscal advantages and also advantages for the children. So that's really about it for the tomboys. The interesting thing for me, and it always has been interesting, is that, when you grow up in the West, you're given this complete pack of lies. It's like a complete assembled collection of total bullshit about like goes with like and dabdy-dabdy-da and dabdy-dabdy-da, and it's all total bollocks. Like does not go with like. Opposites attract. And when you go back beyond the 70s and you start looking at the kind of lifestyles that people led prior to that, you see that it was just an invention. And all it was that homosexual males didn't want to be called girly, which is remarkable because, my God, they are. You know, it's just the way of the world. And lesbian women didn't want to be called mannish, but they are. And like I say, you go back into the earlier 20th century when people were making photographs of these people, Magnus Hirschfeld, for example, but many others. And what you're looking at is some rather petite, quite attractive men. That's what a lesbian was then. So the tomboy experience, many of the sexual experiences, the sex gender experiences in Southeast Asia, in fact globally, reflect things that were happening in the West a long time ago. And it's not that, you know, the West has left the rest of the world behind. It's just that the West has gone off at a ridiculous tangent, which in the end will collapse. It will fail. And I can't say it's going to be missed. It's certainly not going to be missed by me, that's for sure. Take care of yourselves. Sorry it's a bit broken. I had to move location and stuff, but we'll see you later. Take care. Bye.